we need to talk about the back half of the roster because we haven't talked about Jalen McDaniels enough, in my opinion. And so I just want to get everyone's opinion on Jalen McDaniels, both offensively, defensively. Just what do you think he's going to bring to the Raptors?
For me, obviously, we don't know how Darko is going to play defensively, like his philosophy. But I think Jalen offers a lot of flexibility. He has ability to play both the three and the four. For anyone who doesn't know on this podcast, the Hornets are my mistress team that I secretly watch before every Raptors game. But
Oh,
They usually have a
yeah,
lot of 7 o'clock starts, right? Yeah, if I
yeah,
recall.
they it's perfect. They play at 7. I watch a good amount. Raptors come on 7:30, and like you hop in between both. It's just perfect synergy. But Jalen excelled. I wouldn't say he's a good shooter, but when he was able to get an open shot, he's able to hit a three. He excels more against facing those like power wing types, those bigger wings like Aaron Gordon's, for example, who aren't as quick getting downhill, but he's able to use his strength and his length to deter those type of guys, and then also offer some weak side protection. I think the only person on the roster that kind of has that similar versatility is a guy like OG. Obviously, Jalen isn't doing it to the same level, but he offers us the opportunity to create some really funky lineups. And if he shoots the ball really well, especially from the corner, he's going to be able to give the Raptors these really jumbo lineups that are going to be able to cause a lot of turnovers and then excel in transition because he's a good play finisher as well.
absolutely. Um, I think it was July 1st or 2nd. I can't remember, but I remember I tweeted out, go sign Jalen McDaniel or go sign Jalen McDaniels. And I was like, and then it actually happened. I actually didn't think it would happen, but they went and together and I was so pumped. And what we signed him for probably made me even more happier. Like I figured this guy was going to get $9 or $10 million per year in free agency just because of his skill set and versatility. And we get him for like, what was it? 4 million a year or 4.5 million. I think it was 2 years, 9.5 million, something like that. So I just thought that was a complete steal and a bargain for a guy who's 25 years old, who is 6'9", versatile, has shown a bit of ability to shoot from behind the three. I know he shot 40% in Philly. He's going to get open looks with Embiid and Harden anyway, more so than he would in Charlotte. And I do suspect he's going to get those open looks this year, providing Siakam's on the team. I saw a stat not too long ago about all the double teams that Siakam draws. And if McDaniels is on the floor with Siakam, I can see him being the beneficiary to some open looks. I'll just put it that way. Um, Kind of like what Trey said as well. I like the versatility. I like the potential defensive versatility 1 through 4. Like we all know, his brother's a really good defender, and I can see Jalen McDaniel showing at least some flashes of that as well. Um, I feel like we've kind of doubled down a little bit on Vision 6'9" this offseason with, well, you got Grady, who's about 6'7", 6'8", and you got McDaniels, um, plus all the guys who already have anyway. So he's at least a guy where, I see upside shooting with him from that part of the bench that maybe we didn't have quite in the last couple of years. So I'm a big proponent of him. I hope he gets a lot of minutes this year. Assuming assuming he fits in the way that I think he can.
I'm really high on him. Probably might show when we play the game if he comes up, but I think he's the steal for the Raptors in this case. I know Schroeder's going to do his thing, but I like the fact that the defensive stuff you talk about, but offensively, I'm actually curious to see how he can kind of spread his wings because I think he's got a little more to his game than people give him credit for. I think as Trey mentioned, he can attack certain type of matchups. There's very few guys on this team that can actually get their own shot to any sort of credibility. I think he might be one of them. If the right matchup comes, he can get his own shot. Not saying I expect to have it ISO for him at 7 seconds on the shot clock type of thing, but if you have to, and the ball's in his hands, I don't think he's going to panic in this case to go and get a shot up and shot up. And I think considering the type of team we have that has so many guys, there's like breadth of like guys can actually get a shot when you need one. I think that skill set might become very potent for the Raptors this year if he's able to kind of get the right matchups and the right kind of guys on the floor with him that he can exploit, as well as to your point, the catch and shoot stuff. I think with Siakam, like I think that's going to get magic if he's out there with him a lot. So I am looking forward to seeing Mr. McDaniels play quite a bit, but we'll see what Darko has in mind. But it's going to be interesting to see how these minutes are going to be divvied up, because I think, as you said before, Coach, there's a lot of guys that are the same size and height in this case here. And defensively, you could probably use all of them in different ways, but I think it's the opposite side is going to determine who gets the most minutes in this case, more so the defensive side.
I think, Beyond, you mentioned it before, so I'll bring it up now. You talked about OG insurance, and Trey kind of talked about it as well. Let's assume that this team is as it is for the rest of the year. Okay. If that happens, OG will probably get injured, more than likely. I'm just saying, players don't play more than 65 games. So.
Oh my God.
You got me factored in.
So, you know what? That right there is very important. And I think that will factor in because, who is he battling minutes with? Otto? I like Otto a lot, by the way, people. I actually really like
the defense. The defense would like to interject here, Buzz Man OG. It seems like.
I'm sorry, but we're not ambushing you. I swear. But yeah, the thing is that it's hard to get players in today's game. That is a whole podcast on its own. And I don't blame the players for this at all. But I partially blame AAU. But that again, another conversation for another day. I just think that it's tough for some guys and a lot of guys to play even 65 games. It's tough. And so you need that. I think that he's very versatile as a defender. It's one of the things that I talked to Samson about. As I said, one of the things that I'm most excited about for this Raptors team is we may not be on the top end, the most well-fitting team, but we can kind of counter that by being versatile with the styles that we can play. And I think that is kind of interesting because you can go big with Pirtle in a lineup. You can also go small ball as well. I'm not saying what they should do. I'll leave that up to Darko and Samson to talk out. But for me, I just like the fact that I think in the playoffs, especially if you can be at least average, and now we got to make that playoffs first, but I think that if you can be versatile on either end of the ball, it gives you an advantage. It gives you extra chess moves that you can put on the board when the time comes. And even during the season, it's a lot harder to scheme for that as well, which also gives you an advantage, which is interesting. I think he will factor into Darko's rotation. And so that brings me to the next topic is I think he got a little killed during your one of your episodes by a lot of y'all. So I'm just wondering, do you think he will factor in? Ignore the OG side of things, but yeah,
ignore the OG side.
Wait, I'm unsure. I think if the Raptors play 10, he's on the outside looking in. If like all being considered, like they don't do any trades. For me personally, I think they should probably try to play as many people as possible, just to see what we have. The Raptors in a weird situation, kind of transitioning to a new era of the team. So for me personally, it would be for his minutes would be a matter of obviously if OG gets hurt or not, if Otto gets hurt, but if he's able to hit the corner three at like a league average level, he'll be able to play because the Raptors are they have literally no shooting. So if he's able to provide that skill set, he'll get on the court.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that, how do I put this? I've said it before, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm not being too harsh here. The way that Masai has focused on team building is that he has his main starting lineup, and then he has like a B squad, which is just like whatever pops. And I think that it's good that you have they did the correct use of using the full mid-level exception, and you don't have an option with the biannual, but using the other exception there. That was the correct use. And getting guys that like are smart bets that will be productive players that you don't need to have another project. I mean, on this specific squad, we talked about it. I really liked Bilal. I know you like Bilal.
Yep.
I liked him partially because of the system that he comes up in is a very tough, very disciplined system versus some of the other more raw prospects that were coming into this draft. But I said, like, that's too many projects. You know what I mean? I'm like, because if you have this guy could be anything, then you add a Precious who could be anything, then you have a Scotty who can be anything. It's like, and they're all, the thing that scares me with development is, hey, what are you working on in your end of season presser? Oh, I'm going to work on everything. I mean, there's only so many minutes in a day. There's only so many minutes on the court that you will be given to try stuff out in. And it's like, if you're trying to, break down a guy, also work on your handle, work on the corner threes, and and all of these different types of things, it's hard to put it all into one package. Again, I'm very hopeful that Darko will help that, and I think we've also in previous years we've lost some development staff. I think we've gotten them back a little bit, like Jama. It would have been nice to get Patrick Mutombo back too, but it's okay. But I think we're making strides in the right direction in that from that standpoint. But I do think that he'll factor in. To what extent, I don't know, but I'm with you. I would give as many people as possible a chance. As Beyond or Coach, any final thoughts on that?
Well, if McDaniels, he shot 40% from three in Philly, but once again, he's going to get open looks with Harden and Embiid, 32% in Charlotte. If I could get somewhere in the middle of that, 35, 36%, he's going to get some minutes on this team. And I say that because the starting unit, I kind of wonder what that for scoring, what they're going to be like. I don't know, but I think you want to have as many scorers or guys who can score on that bench unit. I just think McDaniels has that ability at least to provide some scoring relief off the bench. That's why I think he's going to play a bit more this year, or a bit more off the bench compared to some of the other bench players.
And Beyond, I don't know if you have any final things. After that, we're gonna go and talk about minute battles. A lot of them have to do with, some of them have to do with Jalen, but there's other ones as well.
No, I think overall, I think the Raptors. One thing they did do in the offseason, I think they're a tad bit better of a shooting team that maybe we think than what we might think of. I'm thinking off the top of my head, there's about 5 guys that should be able to shoot about league average or better on this team. Probably 5. I don't know if last year you get past 2 in this case for league average or better last year, right? And one that was probably Trent Jr. He's streaky as hell in this case here, so like that didn't really make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. So like the thing if Grady, he's the way we expect him to be. If he does anything close to what he's done in his entire career, he should be at least at best an average 3-point shooter, if not better. Otto consistently has been that in his career. Obviously, Otto is always the asterisk. OG has been pretty much that for most of his career. Trent Jr., as streaky as he is, somehow, some way, when the season ends, he's usually above or above average, if not above it. So that's 4 guys right there off the top of my head. All I'm looking for is a 5th guy. And if that happens to be McDaniels based on just pure catch and shoots, where he hits that average, as coach says, that's 5 guys right there. And I don't know yet, depending on how Darko's offense goes, the one year where Schroeder shot the best, I think, in his career, who was the guy who was implementing the offense for him that year. So we don't know. I'm saying compared to the year before, I actually feel a little more, a little more warm and fuzzy about the shooting in this case here. And then if they're not playing Siakam, like pretty much, doing everything by making the popcorn in the stadium, he might actually be able to shoot back to some averages he had a couple of years ago, where he's not doing everything besides making popcorn in the stadium. He too might actually be able to shoot a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe the numbers go down. If he's playing 40 minutes a night, might be a correlation. Who knows?
I think good points. I mean, for I'll make a quick reference that reminded me. I won't go deep into this reference, and you'll know why for those of you who have seen it. But it reminds me of Uncle Ruckus and him doing all the jobs. Anyways, in a good way, not in a bad way, people. For those of you who know, who definitely know. I'm sorry. Anyways, I digress. In the minute battles, really quickly. We're just gonna do this like this person versus that person. Tell me, if you have like a quick sentence about it, great. If not, but just pick a person. So, Liberty Freeman or Freeman Liberty Javon, the man who sounds like he should be from Philly, but's not. He's from Illinois. Him versus Flynn.
Malachi Flynn will play.
Okay.
Will play more.
I'll say Flynn. I'll give him the edge.
Okay.
Liberty Freeman.
Okay. I'm gonna sit this one out.
I had to think about that for a sec.
It's so sad that I had to really think about that.
Yeah.
I can't wait for them to get the season. It's it takes off.
You know what? It might actually be Liberty. That's what I'll say. Mainly because I think he has the athletic juice that others don't, and I think he might shock people from that standpoint. But obviously, he's a two-way, so there's limited amounts of time without creating space, and there's already two people that are in that space for him. So, again, this is minutes, not in terms of who you're inserting in a lineup, but GTJ and Schroeder. This is an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, this one's tougher. I'm gonna say Dennis plays more, just because I could see Gary's minutes. If Grady plays well, his minutes going down.
I think I look at it the same way. I think in this case it will be Schroeder too, but I think for a different reason. Because I think a lot of fourth quarters. I think Gary's gonna be sitting beside Darko a lot of fourth quarters. I feel in this case here, closing lineups, and Schroeder's gonna be out there.
I'm gonna choose Gary. Gary technically did average more minutes than he did last year, but I think Gary shooting with that starting unit, because they're so devoid of it outside of him and OG, I do think he's going to get quite a few minutes this year. I think shooting's just going to be so essential. Sure, it's going to be close, but I'll give the slight nod to Gary.
And I'll go with a tie. I think they're both going to play almost around 28 minutes, almost to the exactly 28 minutes. I don't know how that's going to be split up or whatever, but I that's how I see it playing out. I'm going to take off the next one because I don't know if Doughton's going to make it past training camp based on the fact that we just signed Garrett Temple for some reason. So I'm going to go and skip that one and go with Jalen McDaniels versus Otto.
It's easy. Otto Porter. If he remains healthy, he is able to actually sync a lot of the bench and starting unit together because he's a very good shooter and has size to play the floor also.
I'm going to second that with Otto. Big asterisk though, if he's healthy,
yeah.
Of course. Like the 40% from three. We saw him in the playoffs with Golden State, and even last year in the limited time. He's pretty good defensively. I could see Otto, at least in the short term, getting more minutes.
McDaniels, and the reason why I say so is that Otto with the injury thing, but even if he happens to get through the season, man, they're gonna wrap him like saran wrap or bubble wrap around him for the entire season, right? Pretty much, I think McDaniels, if you think like a baseball analogy, McDaniels can be like a middle reliever. He's just gonna eat up innings or eat up minutes, right? Like whoever's hurt, whoever's this, he's gonna be able to play more minutes to compensate for whoever's not be able to play. So I think McDaniels is gonna have a role in that because he's been a pretty fairly healthy player. He's a young guy. And as we discussed, he's versatile. So I think he's going to get a lot of minutes in a lot of different lineups.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with McDaniels. Similar reason. I think that Otto is going to become our Iggy. I think I do see us making the playoffs, as currently constructed, and everything else remaining the same. And that's playoffs, not play-in. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be top 3 or anything like that. I think we're probably around a 6th seed. If all goes well, we might be able to punch up to a 5th seed, because I think we can do, kind of our version of I forget who pointed out to me, but the Knicks, where it's like, your top 5 in defense. It might have been Samson, actually. And it's like your top 5 in defense. You're kind of meh on offense, but the defense will carry you into the playoffs, and then that's a whole different story. So I think that they're going to not be, they're going to try to get 40 games out of him and kind of prep him for the playoffs, depending on how we're looking. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Jalen. Okay.
If there's any player to load manage, it's him.
Yes.
Load manage it. Don't play him back to back.
Please. Because history will tell you.
You want
you
to
could
say
use some load management. Sorry.
No, I said Trailer, you wanted to jump in on something.
Oh yeah.
No. I just thought it was funny with the one scout that said he was a layup away from being out 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's why he did the bubble. I made the bubble wrap joke.
Yes. Yeah. So with 10 toes being down, we're gonna go to Koloko versus Precious.
This is a tough one. This was my controversial one.
I went you. I had your back, man. I
was getting cooked.
No, man. Stay strong, man.
I'm gonna say Koloko again, just because the scarcity of size of our bigs. There's no other person to replicate what Jakob does, and ideally, what I think the Raptors should do is go heavier on drop defense, run guys off of the line, use our big wings to funnel to our good shot blockers. And while Precious, I think, is the better player and better defender, can't replicate that role in the same way that Koloko can. And being that Koloko's younger, I think you wanted to prioritize his development aside from Precious, who's in a contract year.
This is an interesting question. It's what do I want versus who do I think? I want Koloko to get more minutes, but I think Precious is going to get more minutes, at least starting off. Kind of like what Trey said, Precious right now, he's the better defender all around, not so much the rim protector that Koloko is. I think they might just prioritize playing Precious a bit more, at least starting out. Because I could see a front court of Precious, McDaniels, and Otto. And that's a front court that could switch a lot. It is a little bit small, so it's going to depend on matchups too. But I think Precious overall will get a bit more time because he's more flexible too. You can play him the 5, you can play him the 4, and stuff like that. So I think he'll get more minutes overall. But I would prioritize Koloko getting those 5 minutes, if that makes sense.
Well, my thoughts on Koloko. I think he's the most fascinating player on this team as far as I'm concerned, because I think if his ceiling is raised to any significant level, who knows what this defense could look like. I'm not saying he's triple J in this case here. What I'm saying is he has certain principles and properties about him in this case that could create the same type of elements that a Triple J does now. Maybe not as good. Funny enough, someone mentioned the other day on NBA radio talking about Triple J's propensity to get in foul trouble. I chuckled because I was thinking, who else is in that same type of mold in this case here? But I think defensively, to Trey's point, and to your colleague asked the only pertinent question as far as I'm concerned, the press conference that day when Darko was introduced.
The guy.
So you're a man in this case. I was sitting there just doing something like, okay, this is typical stuff. And I was like, a basketball question. What shot? So if that's the principles that he's looking at, Koloko in this case will achieve that in my mind that Precious ever could. And offensively, I can't lie, it's gonna be a bit of a running soap opera all year. The amount of times I watched in this case, the frustration with Darko when Precious wants to pound the ball about 10 times to get the hoop. If this man wants about 3-second touch thing for the offense, Precious like the antidote in this case, or like the kryptonite to it. I do not see Precious Achiuwa in this case moving the ball that quickly on offense without having a few of his own ISO touches that he likes to have. And that's going to be an interesting drama, a little interplay between him and the coach all season long. And that alone might keep him from getting more minutes in this case here, more so than the defensive side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with Koloko. The first video that I ever made on this channel was a breakdown video, and it was Koloko. I did it after he played against Miami and as well as the Chicago game. But I've been watching him for a while now. Of course, you know, the Ben Matherin's old teammate. Um, Listen, I think Koloko's really really good, and I think Precious can play the center in spot minutes, but I think that his pathway to success is probably not being a third or second big on this team. I just think that he's probably more so suited to be a you know, like a backup 3/4, and I call him more of like a right now, because I don't know if I believe in the shot, more of a power 4 than anything else. Um, so I yeah, that's where I kind of stand on it. Also, I think in terms of the defensive principles, I mean, Pac-12 Defensive Players of the Year are usually pretty solid in that area, but also just in terms of the eye test that I've seen. Now I don't watch as much as Trey, but you know, I would say that yeah, they're really really good, and the numbers back that up too. I mean, I even I've said this several times, but I'm embarrassed to say I've watched several full like of you know G League games, and like he was really good there. Kind of reduced his foul, you know, propensity to foul, and I think he got better overall. And I also, not to get into this type of territory because I know it is the summer, but like he does seem to be working on the right things with the right people. Chris Johnson, of course, you know, teaching him, you know, drop step and just simple things. What I noticed with his offense, the stroke looks nice, needs more touches, obviously, needs more experience. Um, I think that the key thing is that he needs to get stronger, and I mean he did look stronger recently. But you saw him in Vegas, in the background, so you tell me. But yeah.
There was less Raptor players than I imagined. That's
Oh, okay.
all I'll say.
Yeah.
I might be showing the State of the Union right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
That was the most telling thing of this pod.
Yes. Yes. There's two more really quickly. I'll do two of them together, and then we'll do the one starter one. So it's really the rest are really Precious. So it's Precious versus Boucher and Precious versus McDaniels. Because I think Precious versus McDaniels is probably the more interesting thing. Boucher, I mean, we've talked about it a couple times, but yeah, because those are really like in theory, those are the two that are really fighting for a spot in terms of minutes. So yeah.
I think Boucher is probably still the best player off of the bench, so I would say over him. I think you said McDaniels over Precious.
Yeah,
I would say Precious also. He's just too good defensively, and I think personally Darko's going to help him a lot. He's such an athletic and violent cutter that with the constant motion that his teams play with, Precious is going to be able to stay on the floor because he's going to get easy looks. Because in some of the bench lineups that we'll be able to throw out, say if we throw out a Dennis, Gary, Precious with two of the starters, that's enough shooting where he's going to be able to roam around. And if Pascal or Scotty stays on the floor as the table setter, he's going to be able to get off a lot of dump off passes or be able to attack off of closeouts and score like that. And that's where he saw the most success. His first year was doing a lot of that. So I think he offers more than Jalen McDaniels. So I would say him.
On a side note with Precious, you know, it's funny. There's a guy you mentioned earlier on, Trey, that if he just watched and model his game after him, I think he'll find himself very successful in the NBA, which is Aaron Gordon. If he just model his game after him, a guy that just cuts, a violent dunker in this case, he can finish around the hoop. He doesn't have the same offensive skill set maybe as Gordon had coming in, but all those type of things that Gordon does away from the ball and stuff like that, and obviously defending, if he just said, hey, I'm going to try to be as close to that as possible, he'll have a 10-year career easily in this league. But yeah, go ahead.
That makes sense. No, Precious is very, very good. It's not, I don't think it's a matter of talent with him. I think for me, it's probably like his fit on the team now. Like you saw in Proto played, his minutes went down just because it's just hard to have, like as my good friend Josh Cordonera says, his range is the rim. So it's just tough to have certain lineups.
a great line.
It's a good line. Yeah.
Wow. And you say, I'm tough, I'm precious.
Um.
Go ahead, Trey.
Oh, sorry. Go for it, Beyond.
Okay. I think these two scenarios actually tells you a lot about what type of team we plan to have this year. Are we looking to do development as the priority? Or are we looking to more win games? Because in both scenarios, if you're trying to win games, to Trey's point, Boucher should play over Achua, right? Because Boucher is a better cutter. He's got the offensive rebound better than Achua. Defensively, they both have their lapses and stuff like that. But I think at times Nick Nurse, we know in this case, has a short leash. So he don't trust too many people. And he's willing to play Boucher a lot more than Achua. So that tells me who's messing up more in his mind. So I think if that is the case, then Boucher should get more minutes. Do I think that's going to be the case, though? I think it's going to be the opposite. I think, unfortunately, Boucher might be the odd man out in this rotation. Because I think there's just no, if you look at it from a development standpoint and a role standpoint, I mean, I don't know if you do want to put more emphasis on Precious, as mentioned previously. That's stuff that Boucher also does. His shooting's not good enough to warrant him being on the floor over some of the other guys. He's not really a big per se that you could play him at center or anything like that. So where do you play a guy at Boucher in this case? And I think he's going to be a guy that might be the odd man out. Now, the other scenario with McDaniels, I'm high on McDaniels, so I was going to say McDaniels for a lot of the same reasons I said with Otto, because I think he's going to play. I think in Darko's system, I think he might be a guy that flourishes in Darko's system. And there's a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of hard times the first couple of months with Precious, man. The beat out all the bad habits that he's had of how he wants to play offensively. I think defensively he'd probably be fine, but it's the offensive side that concerns me with Precious. I think there's going to be a lot of headbutting. I think we're going to see a lot of moments where Precious is going to come off the bench, in this case, or going back onto the bench with that sulky face that we see on him sometimes when he's not pleased about something. Because Precious does not hide it when he's not happy. Like, he doesn't have a poker face when he's not pleased. I think we're going to see a lot of scenarios early in the season, and that will determine what his minutes look like for the rest of the season, in my mind. So.
Yeah. I think was it Precious and Boucher? Was that the first comparison?
So Precious and Boucher versus Precious and McDaniels.
Okay.
And
so
then
Precious and Boucher,
one other one after that.
They each averaged 20 minutes a game actually last year. Now Precious had started more games. He had that little 6-week spell where OG or Fred or somebody was hurt. I can't remember. So he got to start quite a few of those games. Kind of like what Beyond said a little bit. If it is going to be about development, you have to go with Precious. He's much younger. I think defensively he's much better. Ball handling is a bit better. It's just the decision making with Precious. It's, are you doing too much right now? He went from playing in Miami, where he more or less says, you run, you grab rebounds, and you score at the rim, and that's it, to Nick Nurse, who you have a heck of a lot more freedom, maybe too much. So I'm hoping that Darko will implement something where Precious's role is going to be somewhere between what he got in Miami and what he had with Nick Nurse. Not too much, but not too little. Like, let him show a bit, but just more of a defined role, what he can do, just a bit more. But yeah, no, I would go with Precious in this case to get more minutes. And between Precious and McDaniels, ooh, that's once again that's a tough one. I probably can see McDaniels getting a bit more because of the shooting. That's the only difference. Defensively, I think Precious is better. He can guard 1 through 5. We saw when he's guarding Harden in the playoffs and when he's guarding Embiid in the playoffs. I don't think McDaniels can do that. So when Precious is at his best, he is very serviceable, and he's like, I know, Kenyon, you've said he's the best fluid athlete on this team. But it's going to come down to decision making and turnovers. That's his only that's a bit of the downfall there with him. So I'm going to give McDaniels the nod because of the potential outside shooting and decision making. Because I think this bench unit's going to need his offense. So I don't know how much offense that starting unit, with Siakam might get. He'll put up his number, so I'm not so concerned about that. But it's just all the clunky fit of the starting 5 a little bit. So I think McDaniels is going to be quite useful off the bench.
Yeah, so I'll do really quickly. For Precious versus Boucher, for the reasons that you guys all outlined. I think just mainly, Boucher is a really, really good player. Like, he is, but he is, I remember talking to someone the other day and they were like, he's still developing. I'm like, he's 30. And this is like last year. Or
Sorry, you said Boucher will get more minutes than Precious?
no, I'm saying Precious will get more minutes than
Oh,
Boucher. I think that they
okay.
will.
Okay.
You at some level you will if they make any move, it'll probably be Boucher will be part of that deal. I can see that just because you need to know what you have in Precious, you and Koloko, and McDaniels. So out of that, there is an odd man out, and it's probably the easiest person to go out from the bench unit is probably Boucher. I think in terms of the McDaniels, I would pick McDaniels, but it depends on who you're playing and it depends on the situation. If Precious is hot, when he's hot, right? But if you're in a situation and you're not really sure and you need to kind of, like I said, and to your points, it's like I look at the him in Miami. He actually played in Miami more than people think. People think he was treated like like Malachi Flynn. He played a little bit more than Malachi Flynn. But his role was very, very specific. Now, I'm not saying that you have to give him that specific role, but I said in another more recent episode, it's like you give him 3 things to work on, maybe even just 2. If you're in the corner, don't even worry about passing. You either close out, right, and attack, attack the closeout, or you are, and dunk. I don't want to see you are too athletic to not dunk it on some dude. Okay, I just yam it. No more trying to do these layups or just yam it. The other thing would be if he doesn't do that, a corner 3. That's it. 2 choices. Keep it simple.
May I ask the floor question?
Yeah, go for it.
Can Precious stay on the court if he's still shooting around 27% from 3?
Yeah, yank him.
It's serious. I'm not trying to, because that's around. It was last year's around that percentage for 3.
28, I think, at one point.
27, 28%. Can he be on a court in this case here with considering some of the key players we know that struggle at 3s? Can he actually get that many minutes being out there shooting 28%, 27% for 3 with this team this year?
I'll let others answer that.
Go ahead.
Probably not, just because those 3 guys are going to play 20, like at bare minimum 30 minutes a night. Mm-hmm. I think with Precious, like it's just volume. For me personally, like if he never becomes a good shooter, that doesn't really deter me from him being on the team long term or in the NBA in general. I think it's just a matter of decision making. Like he is such a great athlete that he could be one of the best role bigs if he truly decided to be. If he wanted to be Rob Williams, he could do it at a very high level. I just think it's a blessing and a curse that he's very talented at almost everything.
Right. I think like, beyond, I see your points are that 27%. That's not good. I think you can probably get away with that if he's on the floor with maybe a Siakam, probably OG, Gary, and Schroeder. Because you got a little bit of shooting there. Schroeder's able to organize the offense a bit more. You got to have some shooting, and you need some organization on there. I think in that case, you probably could get away with it. Or if it's Grady on the floor and stuff like that, got to have some shooting, got to have some organization,
right? Because like if you're saying Koloko's got to get minutes as a backup big, right, and he's not necessarily considered a shooter already, and then you're gonna have to get the shooters in this case here, and say if you're playing with a bench unit with Scotty, oh boy, now you're really looking at some serious issues now. Scotty with Koloko, you can't have Precious out there with those 2. You can't. Never mind the real estate issue. Like just the fact that he can't spread the floor and Scotty and Koloko. I just try to figure out where he plays on this team. Like, when we start really thinking about, that's why Otto's so valuable. And I think McDaniels plays a similar role, kind of poor man's Otto in that sense, because they can still shoot it from out there and still kind of get away playing a power forward if you wanted to, or small forward, depending on who else is on the floor. But with Precious, it gets to be really awkward, man. And I think Boucher's in the same boat, but at least Boucher gives you that special thing of the offensive rebounding. He's like a maniac. He's like a one-man machine on the offensive rebounding energy level that Precious doesn't really bring all the time. But to be fair, Boucher does bring that. And
that's the consistency part that you just mentioned with Boucher. You know what you're going to get from him every night. Yeah. Kind of if I'm not saying he should be playing a ton of minutes because like me, he's on the bubble in that rotation because I don't know. If it's about development, you probably shouldn't put give him too many minutes. But at least with Boucher, he's going to give you big time effort. He's going to go after rebounds. I've seen Precious do that, and I've seen him not do that. Like, it's got to be more consistency this year from him. That's why it's a big year.
I'm on the record saying this in this case here, but I'll say it here so everyone knows my position. I am not a fan of the old guard when it comes to bench. So I'm just saying that right now. I'm new guard in this case. As far as that concerned, I think the only one from the old guard besides Koloko, I would say is Porter. If he stays healthy, of course, he actually has all 10 toes. Besides that, everybody else is on the old guard. You know who they are. We don't need to mention it. I'm fine if they're not in the rotation. Quite honestly, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I think we've already learned enough about them as far as I'm concerned. But we'll see another year maybe for folks to get a sense of what they can do.
Yeah, I think the last one was OG and Barnes, which is interesting. I just really quickly, who would you pick?
I think Scotty Barnes should play the most amount of minutes on the Raptors this season, regardless of whether Pascal's on the team or not. Like in terms of winning, OG probably affects winning more, but the Raptors aren't going to go anywhere unless they figure out what they have with Scotty, and that means his role needs to scale up more. So it has to be him.
Okay, he played how many minutes? 35 minutes last year a game.
I think he played the second most in terms of average minutes on.
Yeah, so like I don't know, there's much more room he can scale up to at this point, but I'm going with your man OG. OG right now, based on this roster right now, OG has become very much a critical piece of if things stand the way they stand at the moment, that you're gonna need OG out there a lot more to kind of balance out offenses for shooting. You know, if the middies humming this year, hopefully it is. That will definitely. We had a little game about that, which I thought was interesting. About we had a game tray about who if you had one player, what shot they developed this year that would kind of raise the ceiling the highest for the team. Who's would it be, right? And we had different things. You know, Koloko hitting a jump shot. I said the OG midi was mine because if OG could actually start hitting that midi with consistency, now we're talking about 20 plus per game score, a legitimate score, and a guy now creates some serious gravity if he's able to do that. The jury's out, but you know we'll see. If he's got his opportunity now, there's plenty of shots now, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's a good one. I want it to be Scotty because, like Trey said, I want to prioritize his development, but I think it's going to be OG. And I say that because Scotty and Schroeder starting off. If Scotty's going to be point guard, I can see Schroeder getting a lot of maybe Scotty's minutes. Scotty's going to play some 3 and some 4 as well. I can see that. But OG, he averaged almost 36 minutes a game last year. I think his ability to play in multiple different lineups as well, bench unit and starting unit, because of his ability to shoot, because of his ability, he's going to be guarding the best player more or less on every team that we see next year. I think OG is going to get a slight bit more in minutes. But what I will say is Scotty might have less minutes, but I think he's going to have more impact on the floor, if that makes sense. Like when he's on the floor, he might be that second option next to Siakam, but that doesn't mean he's going to play more minutes per se, because OG is going to have multiple roles on this team. Biggest one is defensive, so I'm going to give OG the slight nod.
I'm going to give OG the nod. Barely. It'll be like within a minute or two. I think that number one, they're going to try a lot of things with Scotty, and that can be very tiresome. So I'll just keep it simple, right? Like, if I think they'll try him at point guard. I think based on the progression that I've seen with his handle thus far, I don't know how that's going to work for this season until he gets a better handle. I don't even care about the shot. Just get. You have to be able to be confident in your handle. So what I think ultimately will happen is they will use him on a lot of different plays. If the point guard thing doesn't matter, they'll still keep him involved in almost every single play, but as a connective passer, which is good. In a way, I saw some old Magic tape from I think his first finals run, and they used him in like the high, just above the post actually, and would like have someone else. What was it? Norm, whatever, I forget the guy.
Norm Nixon.
Yeah, Norm Nixon, and they would dump it into him, and then he would make decisions from there. So that's what I would do, but ultimately, I think that that's very tiresome. I think if the I'm not saying that he didn't play hurt, but I'm just saying like if the tendonitis thing is actually like becomes a thing, you know, you might scale down his minutes, and I want everyone's minutes down anyway, so I could see him, say OG's 33 minutes, Scotty's 32.
I'm curious to see what they do with him when it comes to guarding point guards or not, right? Because like we had this discussion before.
Yeah, that is a terrible idea.
I agree. Well, a particular coach had that idea last year. I'm just saying I totally agree with everybody, but it is a good question to find out. Like when they play a team like Philadelphia, assuming Harden's still on the team, and obviously Maxi's starting, who's covering?
Is it Houston style of Harden where he comes in a little bit,
Let's just say it's
looking
normal.
like he went to the buffets in Las Vegas, or
let's say it's Harden from last year. Right?
Okay, I'm just so there's you might have a little bit more speed on the guy.
That's the Harden I'm talking about. He's giving me 22 and 11 or 22 and 10. If Harden is doing Harden stuff, is when you're playing Philadelphia, is OG playing Harden? Is OG playing Maxi now with this team?
I think you would have OG on Harden and Dennis. Well, if he's not starting,
yeah,
he's not starting. I would start Dennis personally, but I would put Gary on the other, just simply for the fact that Scotty doesn't have the foot speed to guard a Maxi, nor does he have the discipline to guard a Harden. You want him roaming off of other guys, like say like a Tobias, and then causing chaos and like digging in on the ball.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, that girl's gonna get hot, man. If that's the assignment, boy, GTJ or Maxi.
Well, we saw it win in the playoffs. We never answered.
Sure, get that going, boy.
That was a tough film study for me. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
Coach.
That's good to be Schroeder and Gary for sure guarding on Maxi. I mean, I would not put OG on him. Like you said, OG's gonna stay on Harden. They'll have him in a bunch of pick and rolls anyway, so OG probably gets switched off a bunch of times, or he will be guarding Maxi or someone like that. But yeah, no point of attack defender. Like if it's on Maxi, have a guard ideally.
Okay, so those are all of the minute battles. I think this is a longer episode, so people, when you see this, it will probably have been split up into two, because we talked about the Team Canada stuff, and that's very important. But yeah, with that being said, that's really all that we have. Trey, do you have anything to plug?
Nothing to plug. Our podcast is on vacation for now till middle of September. If Pascal does get traded, you will get a podcast from me. Go follow Raptors Republic. We have a bunch of talented writers there. Support local media, and thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, it's been great having you. Hopefully we will have you in the future. I hope to have Samson as well in the future, when assuming that his travels remain safe. Which it's a fairly relatively safe country that's sparsely populated, as I've learned recently. With that being said, people, stay tuned, watch FIBA basketball. I might make a couple like written posts on here just about the FIBA stuff coming up, so stay tuned to that. Coach, Beyond, do you have anything to plug, or not really?
Oh, I'm good, man.
Trey, it's great having you on the show. We're like Kenyon said, we're kind of the usual, so it's always good just chatting basketball with people. So, and it's good to have your insight with us as well.
Absolutely.
It was awesome.
That's been that. People, like, comment, subscribe, do all of those things. And in terms of Raptor Republic stuff, definitely check the links down in the comment section or in the description. I haven't decided which, but check them both for that down below. Anyways, take care, people, and peace.